As we get started, I would like you to forgive me reading this, but I'm not knowledgeable enough to do it off the top of my head. I have some Indigenous word cards that are built by RMIT in conjunction with Indigenous people here, and it talks about their language groups. And I don't know this off the top of my head, but I think reading it and us all learning together is okay. So, I would like to acknowledge the people of the Woi Wurrung Boon Wurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nations, on whose unceded lands we conduct the business of community today. I respectfully acknowledge their ancestors and elders past and present. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians and their ancestors of the lands and waters across Australia where we conduct our businesses. Now, the other cool thing that comes with this card that gets me to pronounce things a little bit better is they have word cards. And I think it's great that we're here to learn today, right? Well, to have some coffee, catch up with friends, spend a Saturday not doing housework, but also to learn. And so today's word that we're all going to share, like kindergarten, is nugal. And nugal means to belong. So see if you can use it in a sentence later today. We'll give you cookies or claps or stars or something, but I think it's important that we recognise the people who came before us. But aside from that, which felt a little bit like a lecture, but wasn't meant to, I'd like to talk about community. So we've all heard move fast and break things, and I want to say, screw that. I mean, look around the room. What we've got here is folks full of curiosity. We're here for connection and shared learning. But outside of these walls, I think some of our workplaces are kind of focused on just going fast, shipping faster, scaling harder, and almost automating connection, which is messed up because we're humans and you can't automate those things. And we've confused, I think, that fast movement piece with progress, and we've confused big scale with sustainability, and then we've applied all that logic of our corporate worlds to humans, and we've just ended up with a whole heap of burnt out teams, no trust whatsoever. And with our communities, a lot of them have been dissolving, and that sucks, because honestly, community is why I've stayed in technology. So we're not just breaking code and shipping shitty things, we're breaking people's trust and confidence and belonging, and it's not scalable. So I'm Gretchen Scott. As per the introduction, I run Collider. We train technical leaders to build great teams. Through that work and through building women coders, I've learned a whole heap of things, and it's that burnout culture it's not solved with dashboards. It's solved with intentional slowness. And we have this little vibe where slowness is conflated with laziness, and it isn't. I think it's an actual strategy. Now, before we get into the main part of the talk, we're going to go on a side quest because those of you who know me know that's what I do best. I'm going to give you the backstory to Women Coders. It's a community I help run. We used to be Women Who Code Melbourne, and I've been running that for 8 or 9 years. It came under an American umbrella, which was great because they paid our insurance and our meetup license. It also had a recognisable brand, so corporates wanted to hang out with us and spend money. And our Melbourne branch was the fastest growing by percentage in the world. We had almost 4,000 members, and each meetup, we held monthly meetups, had over 80 people attend. Even our technical hands-on ones, which sometimes you only get 10 people at those, we would regularly have 75, 80 people at those. We ran last year before, one of our best ever meetups. We were doing a whole React thing. Vanguard was sponsoring us, I think. We had a whole heap of people in the room building projects together and having a great time. The next day I got up, and being a good organiser, I thought, I'm going to send off the repo, I'm going to do that follow-up survey to see what was good, I'm going to get feedback, we're going to make this awesome. Hopped onto Meetup, and I was like, how do you meet up like this? I'm a bit shit at tech, for context. I am the best tester in the world because if it is stuff-upable, I will do it. So it got to the point where I needed some pair programming. I rang Susan, we jumped on a call, help me, I can't do Meetup. And it turns out it wasn't just me, we'd been kicked off or downgraded. Women Who Coded shut down, they just forgot to tell us. And so we lost our entire community. I did a sensible thing and I rang a lawyer friend and said, what do I do? And she goes, email them and ask for the brand name. and trademark in APAC, see if they'll give it to you. And they just wrote back and said, nah, I thought they'd ask for money. And so I rang her back and said, we've got nothing here. And she goes, set up your brand name and colouring as close as you possibly can. And I was like, won't they sue me? She goes, yes, a cease and desist from a big American company. We get you great sponsorship money here. So that's what we did. They forgot to sue us, so it didn't really work. But part of this talk comes from the fact that I've had to rebuild a community that was built. There was 4,000 of us, and we went back to like 5, because they shut off everything. We had no contacts, we had none of it. So this is the background behind why I think this is important. Anyway, sorry, back to the main thing. We're talking about going slow. Who here likes to push back on rules a little bit? Who just lied to me? People in tech love pushing boundaries a bit or going, that rule's dumb, I don't want to do it. In our whole cult of speed, rebellion is slowing down, and I know we like being rebels. So going slow is choosing depth over the noise and asking better questions before scaling and designing for trust before you do the big growth thing. And the paradox within it is that if you go slow, if you invest upfront in psychological safety, you have a whole clear purpose about what it is you're doing, and you build up some real rituals that mean stuff for the people in that community, and also set some boundaries. I know I said break rules and stuff, but we have to have some. Then you spend less time fixing it all later. One of our favourite questions at work now is, what if I did this at half the speed? Can you imagine that? In one of your sprints when you're planning? Like, hey, what if we only did half of this work? But it's a really interesting question to explore because you can think about what's important. Okay, dropped the C-bomb a few times. But what is community, really? So it's not an audience. It's not a list of users or a group of followers. It's a network of relationships. It's built on a shared specific purpose, often a foundation of mutual trust. It could be, communities are often family groups, right? Or religious groups or educational groups, or sometimes it's just frivolous, I like reading this obscure group of books kind of groups. It's a place where the goal is belonging, back to our word nugal. It's not just networking. And in a successful community, you feel safe, right? You do ask the dumb questions, you are vulnerable, you do admit mistakes, which is why I could stand up at DDD and go, hey team, I'm going to read this because I don't know it yet. And I felt okay doing that here. Other conferences I wouldn't have. Good communities are inclusive. They make space for not just the loudest voice, not just the person who wants to stand up in front of a podium because they like it. It has space for the quiet contributors and the deep thinkers. They feel welcome, even if they're not there to jump in and loudly participate. And good communities are resilient. They can withstand a disagreement. They can withstand getting shut down and money being taken and brand names. And they're sticky. People want to linger around even when the day's done. So the real stuff is, how do we build a community? I think the first thing you need to do is define your purpose. And do this slowly. How many times have you gone, I've got a great idea, I'm going to start a Slack group? You need to be hyper-specific about why you're gathering and who you're doing this for. And this whole purpose piece around your community becomes your bouncer later on, which is a really important concept. You need to design for trust as well. And darlings, I'm going to be the awkward person that says heaps of seats at the front. But those people standing, there literally is about 10, 12 seats right in the front 2 rows. And I don't pick on audience members, so you're safe up here. It's not like the comedy shows. When you design for trust, you use your authority as a host to protect the purpose. You exclude generously, and you design rituals that are good for the people in your group. And you also build for longevity. You focus on the small, consistent things. Oftentimes, community groups are centred around events. So DDD has DDD by night and it also has the annual event. Events are a really important part of our lives. But I want us to stop just for a moment to consider the ways and the reasons we gather. I mean, why do we come together? We gather to solve problems we can't solve on our own. We hang out together to mourn, to celebrate, to mark transitions of life. We come together to make decisions. We gather because we need one another, right? You don't want life to be a lonely sport. We turn up together to show strength, to honour and acknowledge one another. We build schools and neighbourhoods. We welcome one another and we say goodbye. But often I think we've stopped asking why it is we're gathering. We should have a purpose. The whole point of that was to say when we gather, there should be a purpose. And when you come together without any thought of why it is you're coming together, you kind of becomes beige, right? Events that could be worthy and respectable come a bit bland. I mean, throwing a birthday party is fine, but are you throwing a big birthday party? Are you throwing one to celebrate a year that was adventurous? Or are you just going, hey, I'm 26 and a bit? I think it's good to have a true purpose, to make a little bit of a stand and stick your neck out. I think you know you've settled on a purpose when you're going to unsettle some guests, or maybe even the organisers, and if you refuse to be everything to everyone. I mean, DDD has not sold itself to executive tech companies. Anyone here from ANZ? I mean, that would be awkward if there was, and sorry. But how do you make a brilliant event? How do you make something worth creating community around? I think there's two things to this. One is specificity. It's a really crucial ingredient. So the more focused and particular an event or community is, and the more narrowly you frame yourself, the more passion it arouses, right? Everyone here heard of Meetup? It's very expensive. It's a great online platform for your offline events, right? Like what they do is actually really great. And you use it to coordinate, like thousands of in-person meetings happen because Meetup. And over the years, they've actually done a fair bit of research into what works and what doesn't. And their words are, the more specific the Meetup, the more likelihood for success. So that was a quote from their CEO, whose name I never wrote down. Sorry, team. And how they do that, they force you to be very specific in your group name now, and then they force you to have a description as to why you are there. And that tactic makes you more visible and clear, and it forces the organisers to actually have that discussion around what are we here for. They call it tightness of fit. A way I like to think about it is imagine you've got a dog and you're looking for a walking group. If you had a walking group that said, hey, I'm a walking group in Melbourne. Cool, Melbourne's huge, and there are different types of dogs that might want to go for walks in this group. But if you said, I'm a meetup group for small dogs in North Melbourne, then you know if you belong or don't, right? You're not going to take your Alsatian along. Well, you could. Uniqueness is a whole other ingredient that needs to be in this. So when you plan a meeting or a dinner or a conference, it's really good to go, how am I different from all the other ones going on here? Why is it different to the other tech conferences? I mean, this one's wildly different. We started Women Who Code, well, back when we started it, there pretty much weren't any women's groups in tech. It was just tech. But the unique factor we really wanted to have, this is an awkward origin story that people don't like me telling much, is does everyone remember Zendesk, like the basement where they had the meetups and the rats, but also the really cool events? So standing there having beer and eating pizza for like the fourth night that week. And I really like beer and pizza. And Zendesk did host well. But I was standing there, I looked over at a friend and I was like, really like a glass of wine and maybe a charcuterie board. So Women Who Code was born. Yep. We don't usually say it that way. But having a purpose and a uniqueness then creates your bouncer. And having a bouncer for your events is a really interesting concept to explore. People who know me know I'm all about inclusion, right? So as I go off on this tangent saying kick people out, it seems a bit hypocritical. Who to include and who to exclude is really fraught, but it's important. So the purpose of your community is more than just some vague concept. It's a tool and it's a filter, and your sense of being there determines all the details, right? So to gather is to make choice after choice after choice. Someone for this conference has decided where we meet, what time it's on, what the food's going to look like, which forks we have, what the agenda is, the topics, the speakers, everything has been decided. There are so many decisions. Each of those decisions is 1,000,000 times easier when you know why you're there. So make your purpose your bouncer. And when you're in doubt about any element, even the smallest detail, you go back to that purpose and you decide in accordance with what you've agreed upon. Typically, your guest list is the first test of this, and it's a chance to put your ideals into practice. It's an opportunity to see how committed you are to those ideals. We've got a really strong desire to keep the doors open for everyone. I mean, who hasn't heard the more the merrier? Do you know what the French say? The more fools there are, the more we laugh. Quite like that one. And the Dutch saying translates very badly to the more souls, the more joy. And in a time of, we used to be in a time where DEI was valued, now kind of less so. But it makes us say, are we actually allowed to exclude people? And at the risk of dissenting from all this wise advice about the more the merrier, I'm going to say, yes, we should exclude. If you've come together with a purpose, then you can learn to exclude with purpose. You learn to close doors. I don't enjoy excluding people, but I still do it a lot. It's tough. So when you're faced with who should come in and who should not, how do you get there? These are the questions we use now. It's taken a long time to get to these, and it's been filled with missteps along the way. The first question is great, right? You know who's going to come and help and who is a supporter. That's an easy answer. Bringing them in, simple. Keeping people out who threaten, that's super simple too, right? Like it's kind of a binary yes-no. The third question is the one where we get a bit stuck. So who do we bring in even though they're kind of irrelevant? So what's wrong with inviting someone a bit irrelevant? What's wrong with inviting Steve? I mean, everyone knows a Steve, right? Steve is perfectly pleasant. There's Steve in marketing, there's Steve, your cousin's sister's boyfriend, there's Steve, your visiting aunt. They're fabulous to be around, right? And often when they come, they bring an extra bottle of wine. How many Steves in the room? Actual Steves. I've been a Steve. You've probably all been a Steve as well. You're invited because they felt like they should invite you, and you're like, sure, I'll be there. But the crux of excluding thoughtfully and intentionally is mustering the courage to say no to Steve, is to shift your perception so that you understand that people who aren't actively fulfilling your purpose will be distracting from it at some level. They're diluting what's going on. They can kind of take time and attention away from the main theme. And if they're a charismatic Steve, which often Steves are, they might just completely hijack it, accidentally. Like they're not there to be a dickhead, but they might hijack you. And this is even more impactful in small events. You know, if it's one person out of 5 that's a Steve, has more impact than 1 out of 100, right? So good exclusion activates diversity. For years and years and years and years, I've said, bring people together. The power of having the unlike together to figure out the world is amazing, right? But I think where I've landed with this is that diversity needs to be activated. Like it can exist, right? But if it's not activated, it's just a whole heap of people in a room. Imagine, I went to an event last year and it was cool. There was like 500 people and it was a tech event and it was great and it was everyone. Like you felt quite welcome. But the diversity wasn't, when you looked around, I was hanging out with my girlfriends who wrote code the same as me. The cyber dudes were hanging out with the cyber dudes. Like everyone just went to their little pocket of where they felt safe. So it was a hodgepodge of people, but it wasn't an activated group of diversity. No one was speaking to each other. So women coders, right? By our very name and focus, we're intentionally bounded. We are wildly lacking in gender diversity. Like at our meetups, I think we're about 98% women. We do include people who are supporters, but I think the name encourages people not to come if they don't feel like they belong. And that's actually okay. Because what it means is other people connect, and that the diversity we have in the room, which is age, ethnicity, technical experience, that is activated, and it's a different kind of coming together. I think when a gathering is bounded and intentional, it becomes a safer space, right? I love this. I hate rules, right? Like I alluded to it earlier, I really hate being told what to do, like with a passion. Who's got an invite lately? You know, wedding invites are like, hey, you all need to wear white because the bride's going to wear green or something random and she wants to stand out. Or, hey, when you come to this dinner party, we don't use surnames, we just introduce ourselves by our first name. Or, I ban you from talking about your job title. And I always want to just rebel against that. And when people tell me what to wear, I'm like, no, it's not what we do. I was going to make a joke about, my name's Gretchen, and anyone here watch Mean Girls? So on Wednesdays they wear pink. It's not Wednesday, but the DDD crew are all wearing pink. I like it. But I started to feel like with these invites, I was like, oh my gosh, is this etiquette on steroids, right? Is this etiquette? But I realised the rules aren't actually etiquette. They're an antidote to it. So traditional etiquette, right, like I'm going to a black tie dinner party, it has an unspoken rule about what you'll wear, which cutlery you use in which order, how you'll seat, who will serve you from the left, if they'll take from the right. There are unspoken rules within this. And they're typically very conservative norms, and they've come from closed circle groups, and it's very classist. Is that a word? Our world doesn't look like that anymore. Look around beside you. You're not all from the same background at all. At all. I've got... people have wildly different cultural norms now, right? I've got these gorgeous friends who are Spanish. In Melbourne, they'll turn up to dinner parties at least an hour late, right? At least. Everyone else has eaten, the food's cold, everyone's grumpy with them and thinking it's not respectful, right? And they're like, what do you mean? We came early. Usually we come 2 hours late. And it's just a clash of these different cultures. And I think that's where now we don't have monoculture so much. These pop-up rules actually are great for people. So unlike etiquette, which takes a lifetime to internalise and is very much based on your upbringing or where you were, these pop-up rules are fabulous. They're democratic in many ways, and they're like baby experiments, right? Like we might be saying, for these 2 hours, you will all wear pink, even if it's not Wednesday. And it's going to be okay, because you all know we're all wearing pink, right? The explicitness levels the playing field. Imagine there is a kind of minefield about not knowing the etiquette in place or the hidden rules. I spent years tripping over it, and I didn't really know the antidote to it is just really explicit rules. And I think community groups have become very good at that, particularly in Melbourne. Everyone will have a code of conduct. It is very overt. You know what's acceptable and what's not. And that helps people belong. Also, I hate rules. But if you've made a community, right? Let's say this is where we're at. We're hosting an event. Then you've got a responsibility to the people who have come along. You must lead them when you're together and when you're apart. So authority is an ongoing commitment you have to the community you've built. And as a creator of community and a host of events, like I'm not the only one here who does it. Often people do take charge, right? Our instinct is to turn up early, to do it once, set the tone, and then sit down. Like perhaps think of the last meetup you went to. Probably someone gave an overview of the agenda, or they said, hey, here's some of our group norms, and then they've sat down, right? They perceive that their hosting is finished. They pretend to be guests. But if you run a community or a leader of any sort, you don't get to do that. It's like going to the gym, doing one lot of sit-ups and going, I got abs, team. Like, you need to be a bit more consistent. And I think if you're a bit laissez-faire about wielding your authority, you're not doing your guest the favour you think you are. The whole point of this slide is to say, if you're going to host an event, then host it. And if you're going to create this make-believe kingdom or world where you brought people in, and yes, a meetup, learning React or some AI thing, that is a kingdom you've created for that moment. You have to rule it. You have to rule the kingdom you've created. You get to think about what kind of ruler you might be, but you still must rule it. And I think generous authority is making sure your guests and your members are okay. You're saving them from chaos and anxiety they could experience. I think one of the things you also do this is you protect your guests from one another. Sometimes people are annoying, sometimes they're boring. You can protect your guests from distractions like phones. Like I could have set a rule at the start going, if I see your phone, I'm going to embarrass the bejeepers out of you. Like there's ways you can protect your guests from themselves, is what I'm saying. And you can protect your guests' time. Like who's been to a talk and there's a panel or a moderator or there's questions afterwards, right? And inevitably there's someone who doesn't have a question, they've got a statement or an opinion or a PhD thesis they want to read out loud. A good moderator will protect the audience's time, and they'll probably lead up front by going, hey, if you've got a question, I want you to tell me your name and then ask a question. And then the person probably won't ask a question, at least one of them. But a good moderator who cares about their audience will say, hey, great, is there a question here? Or how would you frame that as a question? Or we're a bit short on time, could you speed that up? It's not rude, it's ruling your kingdom well. And people aren't setting out to be dickheads when they do that. Like, I've gone on tangents and rants. I had a question for someone, but also I got a bit distracted by what I was saying. Sometimes I need to be pulled back too. It's not that they're a bad person, they just need to be reminded of why we're here. So I think generous authority gives compassion and it gives order. Okay, so we've established that you'll all be great hosts when you build communities and that this takes time. We've been going slow. Two other things happen. Well, things have already happened, right? Before you have an event, the event has started. Your community event experience happens the moment your members learn about the event, right? DDD started happening months and months and months ago when there were tickets or there were CFPs happen. And this is a real window to prime your guests for what to expect next. And we often squander this pre-game window. We do directions and all these other things. Invitations are a really beautiful way, or meetup registrations are a really great way to manage expectations, and I don't think we use them enough. We can really set the scene there and not have to do too much admin on the day. The other thing I think we often mess up is managing the threshold. And what I'm talking about here is between when someone's found out about the event or the meeting or whatever's happening and they've booked a ticket and they've planned on coming, they've actually physically got there, right? And I mean, I'm assuming people caught public transport because we're right in the middle of the city, but what if it was an event they were driving to? People turn up really frustrated from not getting a park. What if their kid threw orange juice all over their dress as they were walking out the door? Or what if they just argued with their parent on the way in? There's a whole threshold piece between where they were out there and where you want the person to be when they're with you. You need a passageway to manage this. You need to give people a chance to be with you in the way you want them to. And sometimes that can be as simple as a registration desk or a sticker table. It's just something to reset the scene and let people put behind them what was. I mean, you all probably had a little moment where you went, which staircase do I go up to get here to this room, and where do I sit? Everyone has a little bit of angst, and we need to have space to reset. And also, that no man's land. You know that bit where you turn up to an event and you're like, I don't know anyone, and this is awkward, and why did I come here? I hate that. Get rid of that for people. I love the words on this, right? Would you start a funeral with logistics? I mean, would you? Probably not. So we've built communities, we've worked hard, we've got the purpose, we've got people in the room, we've sat them down, and then we've gone, the fire exits are this way and the toilets are that way. Like, what are we doing? I mean, this stuff's important, but it shouldn't be what we lead with. Openings are often a missed opportunity. They often underwhelm, and they don't have to. And I think it signals to people what to expect from the rest of the experience, right? So in the first few moments when you turn up to a conference or event, you're going, what do I think of this? And then the next piece I often do is, am I in good hands? Do I trust these people? Is the host nervous? And shit, if they're nervous, should I be? And what's going to happen? Is this worth my time? Do I belong here? How do I even want to belong here? So the opening is a real opportunity to establish the legitimacy of why you're there. Also, attention's at its highest at the onset. Like, I think we know the first 5% and the last 5% of what happens is what you remember. Plus there's a little bit in the middle. Oh, actually, on that note, that's why I put these in the middle, to prove my point. We should thank all our sponsors. They're the reason we're here. But that's how our brains work, right? We remember the first 5%, the last 5%. If we spend that first 5% going, the toilets are behind you, like, what? Anyway, back to talking about why we're here. Now we've smashed the middle bit with sponsors, who we're very thankful for. When you go to an event, there should be some meaning. I've got a theatre teacher friend, and he always says the way you can tell the difference between a good actor and a great actor is not by how they enter the stage. I mean, everyone has a plan for turning up, right? For getting up on stage is easy, starting the first words is easy, you know you're going to say your name and something else, and you want to make sure you've got energy and presence there. But he always says the great actors exit well, and dramatically and in character. Assuming your job is done well, you should not be scuttling off the stage. And the same can be said for any meeting, right? So great actors spend as much time thinking about their parting moments as their arrival moments, and great hosts do the same. How you end things, like how you begin them, gives a sense of memory. Well, it doesn't give a sense of memory. It's embedded in your memory, and it just sets the scene. It's what you take away with you. So you need to make some meaning making at the end, because as people leave, they'll be saying, what transpired here? Why does it matter? Was Steve an idiot? Why was Steve there? And if you don't set the meaning yourself as a host, the participants will. And I guarantee it's not the meaning you wanted for them to make. I hate this whole piece. This is more in reference to community groups get funding based on member numbers and likes, because that's how corporates want to measure stuff when they donate funds to you. But I'd like to say that those vanity metrics just suck. Like, they measure fleeting curiosity, but it's zero guarantee of belonging. So I think a community really isn't an audience. An audience, this is a community, sorry, DDD is a community, but you folks sitting here looking at me now is not my community. You're an audience for me right now. It's not, it becomes transactional. If all you're measuring is clicks and likes and how many meetup members you've got, it's transactional, and it's not built for longevity, right? A community model that is built for longevity goes deeper. It starts being relational. It becomes, I see you, rather than, look at me. And it's safe. It's a space we can give each other a bit of grief, we can fail, and we can keep coming back to fail together some more. And this piece around connection is where communities have to go really slow. So a successful community is always growing, but not rushing. So it doesn't move fast and break things. It moves really intentionally and it builds them. So to build something that lasts, we need to commit to three things. One is persistence over performance. So Women Coders has been growing for years. We're still, I think it was 3 years ago they shut us down. We were 4,000 members. We're now only back up to 800. There is a part of me that goes, let's do a social media push and do some marketing and buy people to like us. And then there's a piece of me that remembers the stuff that I know, and we have that, and our budgets are low. But we're valuing the honesty of an actual connection with humans as opposed to just numbers growing. And we don't just catch up because catching up's fun. Every time we have a meetup, it has a purpose around what we're educating around, why we're educating around that, who the benefit is for. And that means we can exclude the right Steves, which is important. Exclusion is hard to do. I do have a little bit of a plot twist on this. I've been talking a lot about community, right, and events. The interesting thing is that all of the stuff we've talked today, right, intentional slowness, generous authority, having a specific purpose, it's not just how to build a community, it's actually really good leadership. Imagine if your next work meeting had a purpose. Wild, I know. Imagine. And that people were excluded who didn't need to be there because they were Steves. I mean, sometimes at work I think we include people who actively just break things too, like we haven't even finished off number 2 in that exclusion. But imagine if we translated this to work. Our meetings had purpose and meaning. People felt safe enough to ask dumb questions. When you went into that meeting room, you were given a moment to regroup and let go of the chaos that was behind you 5 seconds ago. And that your team was built slowly and with a sense of connection. And imagine if your team wasn't measured by, your sprint velocity, but whether you still trusted each other. I mean, try and get that through HR as a KPI. If you cared about performance, I think we'd do these things. So this is a soft lecture from me about be better in the workplace. All of this stuff creates really safe teams where people belong, and I think we all know that we do better work that way. And I'm a huge fan of explicit rules for these meetings as well. So I think I would like for us to all go out in the world and build something really slowly. I think we have, particularly now in our chaotic world, a real responsibility to go back to my Indigenous word, nugal. Do you know what I love about these? It goes nu, as in rhymes with zoo. Thank you, team. Because we want people to belong. When they belong, you can actually move faster without breaking things. And the way tech's going, that's pretty important to me. And personally, I'd rather hang out in the pub with 30 curious kind of weirdos talking about ideas that matter than on a main stage at a big tech conference with 3,000 people from corporate Australia pretending to care about what I'm doing. And so on that note, I think if you want to build a product that lasts, a team that's brilliant, you can code fast and do stuff. But if you really want it to be meaningful and make sense and go on into the future, then you need to build community. And that takes a lot of time and effort and intentionality. Thank you. If there are any questions, then there are roaming mics. But also, while we're going to the first hands up, do your bingo cards, team. There's some good prizes.
Hi, thank you. Disclosure, I was here for the plot twist, so I'm going to talk about that. I get your point with a meeting having a purpose and your team being your community. How do you reconcile that with the probable case in a large workplace that the purpose is determined by somebody outside that community?
Yeah, no,
meaning a senior executive.
And often there's a gap between what their purpose is and what would be valuable for your team, right? There's the version of me that tends to ignore that top-up rule and finds the top-level purpose that doesn't align and tries to find something meaningful for the team. That's not useful in the long term. I think the real art in leadership and management is around seeing if you can find somewhere in between where you don't feel disingenuous yourself, right? So let's say the purpose of your meeting was to get rid of half your workforce because AI can do it better. You're not going to bring your team in and go, hey team, which half of you want to go? I mean, maybe you would. But it's about finding some language between, you're probably wanting to go in and say, hey team, how are you folks going? What are you doing with your life? I'd be wanting to get a bit of understanding around where they are personally. So I'd kind of frame it in that context. And I'm so aware that was possibly the worst example I could come up with to make anyone feel good about themselves today. But I think it's, to answer the question more succinctly, finding a gap between what executive levels want and what your team needs and trying to translate. And it's really difficult. But also, a meeting can have like the most narrow purpose ever, right? Like a tiny slither. Like maybe your purpose for that meeting is to decide whether you use Google Slides ever again or you go to Canva. Like it could be that specific. And sometimes that makes it better too, because you can ignore the chaos up there. Okay, so you've all failed the test. Oh no, there's another question. I want to see if as a collective you've passed the test.
Hi, I have a question about how you go about building community into a product. Do you have any advice on that? Especially for like...
That's my other talk on...
especially for like the dreaded like empty Discord or Slack or forums for new products with like onboarding new users.
That's a tough job. Slowly and authentically. What you really need to do is get 2 or 3 people that are quite active and will respond to you, and the more active that gets, the more it comes along. It's actually really hard. What you're talking about is starting from ground zero and building something from there. Often the first step is reaching out to people you know personally and asking them to join and bullying them into being a part of your community. But be really intentional about who you select to do that, because they're going to set the entire tone, accidentally or not, for that community group. Often then having events and bringing people in and making it fun and sparkly gets a bit of energy. But it is a long, slow process, and I think a lot of corporates go, oh, hey, we've got a Slack for users or a Discord for users. They'll all come along because everyone comes along. Whereas us out in the wild have gone, no more Discord. I'm done. I don't want any more alerts. Stop it. I think it's slow and painful until you're overwhelmed by it. But also, back to you failing collectively as a group. Because sorry, I'm here to make you feel good about yourself. One of the things I talked about was making meaning, and I've ended that appallingly. Like, what are you guys going to take from this as you leave? Oh, okay, you win then. I talked briefly about this at a meetup, and one of the guys at the end goes, so how do you finish a talk well? And I went, I don't know. So I'm open to any advice any of you would have for a dramatic ending to make you take fabulous meaning. I mean, you can come up to me and give me advice later, because I'm yet to figure this one out. Are there any other questions? Oh, you're so polite. No Steves.
I was actually going to ask whether that last question, whether Steve gets an invite to that Discord channel.
No, don't invite Steve.
You mentioned that not everyone or no one really wants to join another Slack or another Discord. How do you maintain that sense of connection in a community between
events,
meetups or events? Yeah.
No, it's really hard. I think so many people suck at this. Like, so full disclosure, the Women Coders Slack sucks. It is not active enough. It's not self-sustaining. Tech Leading Ladies have a really fabulous Slack channel. It's taken, 7 years to build that, so it's a self-sustaining piece. And part of what I think makes it self-sustaining is having really specific channels about what's happening. And then people do engage with what they need. You need to be giving people what they're looking for. So, for example, Tech Leading Ladies has a jobs section. People go there specifically for jobs. They've got a craft section I didn't know about. I've just joined that. They've got ask us a question. But it's very specific, and it's got to the point for years and years and years the organisers were feeding information in, sharing events, sharing articles, sharing information. So it was very intensive for the organisers. And then all of a sudden they'd what's the better word? Encouraged the community to take on these actions. They'd role modelled it, and now it's really self-sustaining. But it actually just takes time. Like, this is a 5 to 7 year project to build a real community. If you think about it in terms of building relationships, right? Like, before you get married, it's going to take a couple of years. These relationships take a long, long time. Sorry, the answer is go slow. There's a question over here. Oh, you can't?
You say to go slow with making communities, etc., but the world, for example, a meetup is only 2 hours. How do you sort of go slow, but also know that sometimes it takes an hour for you to just settle down after getting somewhere, etc.?
I love that, because you're right, it can. I think part of that, you can speed up that transition process for someone from when they walk in the room to when they feel settled, and a lot of that is by setting expectations. Like I talked about registration desks, or even what we do at Women Coders is have name tags with Sharpies and stickers, and people can slow down and just come to that space and be there. But then you're right, the average meetup's 2 hours. You've only got 1 hour of doing stuff with people in between, right? Because it's 15, 20 minutes to turn up, 15 minutes to tell them where the toilets are straight off the bat, and then you do your thing for an hour and then they mingle. You don't get a lot of content across. If you want to share content with someone, run a half-day event. But also, I'm so typical of me, I am over time. This is why they sent 2 wranglers instead of just 1. Thank you all for your attention and for spending a Saturday.